I'm going to be probably too honest in this video, but I have been traditionally published for coming up to a year now, and I guess this is my review. We're going without glasses again today, because again, the glare really annoys me, and it seems to annoy you guys too. So we've ditched them for now. I'll try and fix that in a future video. But today's video, I'm a little scared. My journey with traditional publishing has been pretty interesting. For the most part, it's been really good. I've rarely had complaints, but I've had a couple of issues. And while I won't go into detail on a lot of them, I will mention them because I think it's important for people who do want to traditionally published, and for people who are traditionally published and want to hear a voice that gets what they mean and understands where they're coming from. So I hope this video is helpful, and yeah, I hope you enjoy it. If you've never seen my face before, my name is Bill Wood. I'm the author of Let's Split Up, which just released in the US last week or the week before. What date is it? It released not long ago. This is the first Sprayed Edge edition. It is pretty gorgeous. And I will say it did come out in the UK last year, but we'll get into that. And then Be Right Back, the sequel, comes out in the UK in 3 weeks, which is really exciting, October 9th, and then next March in the US. So now that is out the way, I just want to say, yes, I've made a video similar to this before, comparing my experiences traditionally publishing and then also self-publishing, because I did do that for a little bit too. So if you have seen that video before, I may repeat some things, but I just wanted to focus on TradPub today. I've sold multiple books, had multiple deals with my publisher, so I feel like I'm in like the right space to talk about this. And as I said, while I've had a really good, for the most part at least, experience with my publisher, and a very lucky one at that, I've definitely had a few hiccups along the way, so I wanted to let you know what they were. We all know that it's really hard to get to this position, but not as many people talk about the issues that sometimes come with it. But any route to publication is going to have its pros and cons, and I guess here's my story. I guess we'll start off, I mean, like a lot of people, having a publisher behind me, being TradPub, has always been a dream since I was like a kid. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed self-publishing. I've had my issues about it as well, and I've talked about that in a video if you want to go see that. But I was always obsessed with the idea of being able to walk into like any bookstore, a bookstore near me, my home bookstore, and being able to find my book. And being with a publisher with that distribution, that becomes a lot more of an easy dream, if that makes sense. So when I finally signed a deal with my publisher, Scholastic, it was wild. It was just like a dream come true, honestly. I have made a video about how I got my deal, how I fell into it. It is quite an unconventional story, and I'll put it up in a card, whichever side it is. So I guess my traditionally publishing art can be split into two: my UK deal and then my US deal. The US deal came along after the first week of sales for the UK edition hit the internet. It was so strange. I basically got an email saying I'd hit like a YA kids, what was it, the highest YA debut of the week, and then in a follow-up email they're like, the US wants your book too. So it was like really strange, obviously very exciting, but like information overload. I'm gonna brag a little bit because the book did end up becoming the biggest selling YA debut of 2024. I am gonna proudly slam that everywhere, but that's beside the point, whatever. So yes, the US deal came after my UK experience, so I've kind of split them up into two for this video. So we'll start with the UK because one, it came first, and I feel like I've had just a better experience with my UK team and publisher. I've kind of got categories for each, and some of them link together, and you'll understand what I mean. But we're going to start with edits. The feedback I had from my editor, honestly, incredible. My editor, Polly, she is an absolute dream. I love her so much, and she just, like, my book honestly didn't change that much, but the things that did change really just made it shine. And she never really took away from what Let's Split Up was, and she just made it the better version of that book, if that makes sense. It just made me realize how incredible editors were. Like, when I self-published, I could only afford to have like one round of edits, so it was one of those things that I didn't get the full experience per se. So having a team behind you, having a publisher behind you paying for this, obviously you get the full shebang, and it was really cool to see. And just, I don't know, it just made me feel, it's a really hard feeling to articulate, but I don't know, I felt special, and you should do in this situation. Honestly, the biggest change we made, and the one that she pointed out like from the get-go in the first like developmental edit, was removing one of the characters' POVs, which honestly made the book 10 times better. I won't go into detail on why, because it's low-key a spoiler, but it was a godsend, and I think it made the book so much better. But on the flip side of like these edits, then comes like deadlines, and deadlines with a publisher is going to vary depending on like when your book's coming out, what publisher you are, what genre, even like what kind of like hierarchy you are at a publisher. If you are a really well-known author, if you have like these big huge deals, you're going to have a little bit more sway over when you want a book to be released. For me, obviously, being the newbie, I signed my book in January 2024, and they wanted it out in October the same year. Now, that is crazy, and yes, I was scared at the time, and we kind of made it work. I don't know how we did it, but it worked out, and I think, honestly, I don't know how they did it. They're professionals at it, but yeah, I was very nervous about it. But because of it, obviously, a lot of the deadlines were very tight. And to be honest, I never missed any of them except for my sequel. I did miss one, but just by a couple days. And that is one thing that I've found different, and I will get into it when I talk about the US. Well, one thing I found different between both sides of the pond, I guess, is the UK is a lot faster. It's a lot of a smaller team. You're kind of working with a lot of people. With the US, you are working with a lot of people, but they tend to have a longer editing time. So that's why like my sequel in the US is coming out 6-ish months afterwards, because they want to have longer to edit. They do an Americanization, all of the above, and we will get into it, but I just wanted to mention it here so it made sense. So yes, deadlines are crazy sometimes, and luckily I do this full time now, so I am able to do it. It's my job. But I know a lot of people are not in that position, and I just wanted to make it aware. If you wanted to traditionally publish, just be aware that that is what can happen. I feel like distribution is something that we can talk about next, because obviously having a publisher behind you means your book can get out into the world a lot easier. Obviously, when you're self-publishing, it's a lot harder to do physical pre-orders. It is possible with certain services, but it's not. If you just use KDP, I believe you can't do physical pre-orders. You can do ebooks, but not physicals. And then obviously getting into Booksource too. And as I said already, dream of mine, and it happened, which was really cool. But another thing that happened for me was the Works. So if you're in the US or anywhere else around the world, the Works is kind of, it used to be sort of like an arts and crafty store. You kind of get just like random stuff, but in the past couple of years they've really focused on books. They've always had like a cheap selection of books. They had like deals that you can get really good deals on books, but in the past year or so they've really nailed down on books and special editions, and my book was one of the first special editions they did, which was kind of crazy. I still remember finding out a couple months before release that they wanted to do it, and I knew from that moment that that was going to help a lot, because I was already feeling like the pre-release nerves. I was like, I'm marketing this as much as I can, but I know I'm not a lead title, so I know I'm not going to get a huge push. But I suddenly realized that this would help a lot. I didn't realize how much it was going to help, because by release day, the Works had, like when we announced it a week before release day, it kind of blew up, and I just saw the hype. Like it just came out of nowhere. Honestly, it was so wild. And if you followed me for a while, you would see just like it sold out within, I think, 3 days. We went for a new print run in like 4 days. It was the wildest time, and people were like selling out of the Works edition, and then because they just wanted to read it and because of the word of mouth, they then were running to just get the standard edition because they wanted it. And it was, I still just like almost cry at the thought of it, because it just came out of nowhere and I wasn't expecting it. And that's obviously all down to distribution. Having a publisher behind me, it's obviously a lot harder to get special editions and all that kind of jazz when it's just you on your lonesome. It's possible, but obviously a lot harder. Also, for distribution, I did want to note that my audiobook, I didn't get an audiobook until about 6 months after release. I know Scholastic especially don't always go for them. It's like a weird thing. I'm not 100% sure like the logistics behind it. They must have some stats on it, but I don't know if it's just because my book did well enough that they decided to do an audiobook. But yeah, that's where we're at with that. In terms of say, I didn't really have as much say in the look of the book. But that is kind of standard, especially for a new author. Thankfully, I kind of looked out. My cover is absolutely gorgeous, and it just works. And it ended up being part of the reason that it kind of stuck out. You see it on a shelf and immediately it catches your eye, which is what you want a book cover to do. I think nowadays, now that I've got kind of a track record, if I did fight back at something, I think they would listen to me, which is obviously a nice position to be in. But not everyone's going to have that luxury, especially for their first book. So again, just want to stress that if you are really into deciding everything, traditionally publishing may not be the route for you. The last 2 points I've got for the UK are publicity and marketing, and they're kind of linked, but I'm going to separate them. For publicity, I almost have like no notes. My publicist, Tina, is incredible at her job. She is absolutely brilliant. One, she loves horror. She loves all these things that my book is inspired by. So you could just tell, because like her enthusiasm for my book, for just like this entire campaign, it was just like oozing from her. And I think that really helped push the book forward. I mean, in the end, she won best YA campaign at her at the Publicity Awards, which was wild. And then she was nominated. Oh my gosh, for a British Book Award, and it was a wild couple of months, and she so much deserved it. We had an amazing launch. We didn't do arcs because we were on kind of a time crunch, but if we had enough time, we definitely would have. Kind of linked, we have marketing. My book wasn't a lead in the UK at the start, and so there wasn't a huge push, and I wasn't expecting a huge push. I feel like everyone knows that even with a traditional publisher, the author is kind of expected to market themselves. It's just kind of become a part of the job to have a TikTok, to post about it. And I had a TikTok before. It wasn't necessarily all author stuff, but it was book adjacent. So it kind of fit, and it definitely helped push my book out there. And then obviously I touched on the work stuff that happened. And I think the works blow up happening push them to then market the book more. I definitely had people tagging me in like Amazon ads and all that sort of jazz. And I'm already feeling it for the sequel. They're doing a lot more for the sequel in terms of like publicity events, but also the marketing push, book tours, blog tours, all of that sort of stuff that's happening. So that's very exciting. And it's all because they've seen the success and they know that they're like effort, I guess, is warranted. Now, this is the bit where it gets a little bit of a pickle, because marketing for the US wasn't let's just say my experience differed. So we'll get into the US side of this little video now, and I mean, take it with a grain of salt, because everyone's going to have a different experience, but this is just mine. And yes, maybe I'm being a bit too honest, but I want people to have the full picture. I don't want everyone to think that it's been a breeze, because TradPub isn't. So here we go. I believe the US was the first thing we sold after the UK. As I said, it was like a week after, almost just under a week after Let's Split Up came out in the UK. And then other foreign editions came after that, up to a couple months ago. I think we sold the most recent one. And some of them, actually a large majority of them, are coming out this month, which is really exciting. And honestly, that's been one of my favorite things about being traditionally published. The idea of your book being in different countries, not only just in English, but like being translated, is such a wild thing to think about. And again, it can happen when you're self-published or whatever route of publication that happens, but it's a lot harder, because you're either paying for it out of your own pocket, you're paying for a literary translator, or you are selling your foreign rights and then but saying self-published. And it's, I don't know all about that, but I know that does happen. I've had friends that have done that in the past, and I don't know all the logistics, but it is possible, but obviously a lot harder because you're doing it all yourself. Anyway, the US release, I was really nervous, and I'm still scared about it. I think now that it's out, I just have this pressure, because it did do so well in the UK, that I have this, again, pressure to make sure it does well in the US as well. And I'm not seeing the same success there, which is obviously, it's such a privileged position to be in. But I feel like in this position, you want your book to do the best, especially when you want it to be your career. And yeah, we'll get into it. I definitely have some points to discuss about this one. So like points that I guess you should know. I was told when and I had my first correspondence with my editor, that Let's Split Up in the US would be a lead title for fall 2025. So, well, it came out 2nd of September. That date never changed. That it would have a sprayed edge similar to the one in the UK, because obviously it'd be proven a success. So they wanted to, I guess, replicate that. And that it would be in hardcover. And that is where the first hiccup I hit with the US is They changed the format from hardcover to paperback about 3 months into the pre-order period. I was told it was just basically a lot of the bookstores they were talking to said they would buy more copies if it was in paperback, so that's why they did it. But because they did switch it into the pre-order period, it meant I lost all my pre-orders, which honestly, already being nervous for release, it kind of like hit me like a truck. It was really hard to swallow, and yeah, I'm still not happy about how it went down, but it went down, and nothing you can do about it. Obviously, this is like not a common occurrence either. Like, it's not like something to like deter you from uh traditionally publishing, because it's very rare that this would ever happen, but it did happen. So I guess this is just me noting it down. One thing I do want to talk about before I get into like the comparisons to the UK, communication with the US is one of the big things that I've really struggled with compared to the UK, because I've just easily become really, I guess close isn't the right word to talk about it with like my team, but they're just one, really easy to talk to, easy to communicate with, easy to get a hold of. And yes, there's differences because US, different time zones. The Scholastic US is a lot bigger of a company, but yeah, it's been a struggle, and I won't get into all of the details, but just say communication is a lot harder sometimes. Anyway, US edits were really, really fun. It was not a very taxing job at all. It was basically a standard Americanization, and then just a couple of queries with different editors about word choices, whether or not a US person would say a certain word, whether or not they would understand a certain phrase, because a lot of the time you don't realize that some sayings are like inherently British sayings, and it's just things you don't think of. So it was a really interesting process, and I think I've done a video about it before on my TikTok. And yeah, it's very interesting. I'm doing the same for Be Right Back, my sequel at the moment, and again, very fun process, and I'm enjoying it, and it's not very taxing at all. The deadlines for this, obviously there are deadlines, but they're nothing. I think I've never, I'm trying to think now, I've always handed them in days early, if not a week early before deadline, because yeah, deadlines are great in the US at least. So far, I should say. It's the distribution in the US is where I start to see some differences, some subtle differences, I guess. Obviously, the US is bigger. It is a lot of a bigger country. The demand, I guess, is bigger. Um, all of it's bigger. Turns out my first print run was actually smaller than the UK's first print run, which I thought was interesting. I don't know. Um, yeah, it was interesting, and the entire first print run in the US had the sprayed edge, so that was kind of like a selling point when they were doing the publicity stuff. That was like, yes, first print run sprayed edge, which obviously they're just trying to recreate the hype there was for the UK. And also, I should say, they produced an entirely new audiobook, which was a full cast, which was really, really cool. An audiobook I've still not listened to. I guess this falls into communication. I've asked for it, not received it. Obviously, I can't get it myself, otherwise I would have just bought it. Being in the UK, obviously that's a very minor issue, but still I would have liked to have listened to it. Last couple of points. Publicity in the US, again, no notes. My US publicist Liv is an absolute dream. She is one, just really easy to talk to. We're similar ages, so I feel like I just message her, and when I've had issues, I just go to her and she's like, I'll sort it, and it's been amazing. We did have ARCs in the US, which I didn't have in the UK, and I was seeing them everywhere. I was getting tagged in stuff, and that was really cool, and it just felt like, I don't know, it was a nice push at the beginning, and it definitely helped push it out there, because then we did I saw there was a Goodreads giveaway, and we hit nearly 10,000 entries, which is funny because it's like the same as the entire first print run. Yeah, that was wild, and I guess it kind of hopefully showed the publisher that there was interest. I don't know if they saw it, who knows. But the last point is the one that I'm most nervous to talk about, and I'm still going to talk about it, but yeah, US marketing. This is, I'm gonna be careful with how I phrase my words here. Now they could be doing like, say, like Amazon ads that I don't see, because obviously in the UK, and yeah, I can't see them, and I'm not going to go into it too much, but considering my book is supposed to be a lead title, I'm not feeling it, and yeah. Am I going red? I don't know. I don't know if this has happened because um, they ditched the hardcover to switch to paperback at quite a late period, or maybe they're waiting for both books to be out before they promo it, so they can promo it as like the both of them together. I don't know the logistics of what's happening, and there's definitely conversations happening, so I won't go again too much into it. But I guess this is just me saying that, as even though both my publishers are technically the same company, they couldn't be more different. I couldn't have had more different experiences between them, and I guess being traditionally published doesn't guarantee success. Obviously, in my situation, I've had a really lucky time with it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's translating to other countries. And yeah, I don't know what my sales are like in the US. I've definitely not seen the hype in the US, and yeah, it's worrying. It's worrying for me. Obviously, on paper, it could be doing really, really well. I don't know. This is me kind of talking through my thoughts on camera. Maybe this isn't as smart. That's where we're at the moment, and I just thought I'd do this video. I wanted to be honest because I feel like we need more authors talking about this. And yeah, I hope maybe you got some insight in this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, if you want to pick up Let's Split Up in the US, it's out right now. I would really appreciate the support, and if you're in the UK, you can also grab Let's Split Up and be right back in a few weeks. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you next time. See you later.